Welcome back to This Explainer. Today, we're diving right back into Animated Quranic Tales, picking up with Ahsan-ul-Qasas, the most beautiful of stories, the journey of Prophet Yusuf, peace be upon him. If you caught our last breakdown, we talked about how a single prophetic dream completely ignited this dangerous fire of jealousy among his brothers. It really set a massive chain of events into motion. So today, we're going to unpack what is easily the most painful, but honestly, the most profoundly educational turning point of this entire journey.
So, what really happens when a dream ignites that kind of jealousy? We aren't just talking about your standard sibling rivalry here. We are looking at emotional stakes that have been pushed to their absolute limits. This unchecked envy, it completely blinds these brothers. It becomes the ultimate catalyst for everything dark that follows. Because jealousy, it's such a dangerous emotion, isn't it? It doesn't just breed resentment, it literally warps reality. It makes you look at someone you're supposed to love and see them as, well, an obstacle, just a problem to be removed. This envy totally transforms them, and it sets the stage for a deeply painful chapter for Yusuf, but as we'll see, one with a massively profound purpose.
Section 1. The plot unfolds. Okay, so this is where those raw emotions solidify into a really dark, calculated conspiracy. The brothers didn't just wake up angry and act out in the moment. No, they formulated a highly specific plan. This was entirely premeditated. Day 1 is just totally dedicated to plotting. They legitimately convinced themselves that by removing Yusuf permanently, they could basically do the math, solve their problem, and hoard all of their father's love for themselves. By day 2, they go to their father, Prophet Yaqub, peace be upon him, and just persistently insist on taking Yusuf out with them. Now, Prophet Yaqub has this deep prophetic intuition, right? So he expresses a lot of fear and hesitation. He senses something is totally off. But by day 3, relying ultimately on Allah, he places his beloved son in their care, and off they go into the forest.
Section 2. Into the Dark Well. I really want to slow down for a second here, because once they are far from their father's protective eyes, the brothers commit the ultimate betrayal, thrown into the depths, young, isolated, and totally engulfed in darkness. Try to truly put yourself in the shoes of a young child in that moment. The sheer terror of the physical drop, the sudden freezing cold, the echoing isolation at the bottom of a barren well, literally in the middle of nowhere. He is stripped of his safety, the sunlight, his family, abandoned by the exact people who were supposed to be his protectors. It is, without a doubt, one of the most profound psychological betrayals you can imagine, when the hands you trust most are the ones pushing you into the dark. But right in the middle of all that terrifying darkness, something incredible happens. He actually wasn't alone. A divine revelation comes to him. Do not fear, one day you will inform them of their deed when they won't even recognize you. Think about the overwhelming wave of tranquility that must have washed over a terrified kid. While his brothers thought they had completely buried his future at the bottom of a well, God was already giving him a glimpse of his ultimate victory. It's such a powerful reminder, honestly. Sometimes our absolute darkest, most isolated moments are exactly where we get our deepest spiritual reassurance. When every earthly comfort is gone, that's usually where true faith actually begins. Section 3. The False Tears. So while Prophet Yusuf is finding this divine tranquility at the bottom of a well, there's a massive contrast happening above ground. The brothers head home under the cover of night, and they execute this incredibly calculated 3-step cover-up. Step 1, they take Yusuf's shirt and stain it with fake blood. Step 2, they intentionally wait for the dark to go home, weeping super loudly just to manipulate their father and hide their own guilt. And Step 3, they fabricate this whole elaborate lie, claiming a wolf ate Yusuf while they weren't looking. It's this carefully constructed narrative designed to wipe their hands clean, which just goes to show how one sin basically always requires a whole web of lies to keep it going.
But Prophet Yaqub, peace be upon him, intuitively knew they were lying. The physical evidence just didn't add up. A wolf wouldn't devour a boy but magically leave his shirt perfectly intact, right? But his reaction is what is truly amazing here. Sabr Jamil. That translates to beautiful patience. He doesn't lash out in rage. He doesn't go seeking earthly revenge against his sons. Instead, he maintains this completely unwavering reliance on God's plan, choosing to complain about his sorrow to absolutely no one but Allah. It's the ultimate display of spiritual resilience. For anyone out there facing unimaginable grief for betrayal today, Sabr Jamil isn't about pretending you aren't in pain. It's about taking that pain and directing it entirely toward the divine, rather than letting it rot into destructive bitterness.
Section 4. Rescue from the Depths. All right, so several agonizing days pass. Yusuf is just sitting there in the pitch black. The hunger, the thirst, the sheer waiting of it all, it had to be excruciating.
But God's plan is already moving. A desperate, incredibly thirsty caravan traveling through this barren landscape is searching for water, and they miraculously stumble onto this exact hidden well. Suddenly, the bucket drops. A literal lifeline emerges from the darkness. Can you imagine? Sitting in the dark for days, thinking the world has completely forgotten about you, and suddenly a rope just plummets from the sky. Prophet Yusuf, peace be upon him, grabbed onto it with everything he has, ascending rapidly straight toward the blinding daylight.
Now flip the perspective. Imagine being the caravan workers pulling up that heavy bucket. They are expecting water. So they are utterly shocked when a radiant, luminous face emerges from the edge of the well. But human nature kicks in pretty fast. They didn't look at him and see a lost, traumatized kid who needed to be protected and taken home to his grieving dad. No, they selfishly looked at him and saw a highly valuable commodity. The irony here is just staggering. The very boy that his own brothers threw away like trash was immediately claimed by total strangers as a precious treasure to be sold into slavery.
Section 5. The Divine Decree.
And that brings us to the core theme of our explainer today. Getting pulled out of that well wasn't a lucky break. It wasn't a random rescue by a passing caravan. It was the strategic, calculated initiation of divine wisdom. This is the absolute key takeaway, the sheer contrast between human conspiracy and divine decree. The brothers used all their earthly agency and jealousy to plot his destruction. But God's overarching master plan, it took that exact malicious plot and used it to elevate him. The brothers thought putting him in a hole would end his story, but actually scratch that. It was literally step one toward his eventual kingship. It teaches us a profound truth. You can scheme and plot all you want, but God's plan is infinitely more powerful. The divine decree always prevails.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question. What was the real effect of Yusuf's steadfastness through all of this? How does experiencing that profound patience and unwavering faith down in the darkest of wells actually shape the monumental leader he's destined to become? Because when you are forged in the dark, how do you handle the light? To uncover the true impact of his faith and to find out exactly where that caravan takes him next, you've got to stay connected. Keep exploring Animated Quranic Tales with us to see how the rest of this beautiful story unfolds. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I can't wait to unpack the next chapter with you soon.